And what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. We are all back to chat about the Eastern Conference semifinals with our. Oh no, sorry, we're not talking about the Eastern Conference semifinal game. I don't. We're not bringing that up. We are here to talk all about Orlando City's 2025 season. I'm so sorry, but we are here with our friends from Loud Proud Orlando. It's John and Luis. How you doing?
Luis, I'm down, man. That just Andrew just threw a curveball at us there. I
Oh,
thought we were gonna talk about that. I didn't want to bring that up. I don't want to
it's.
bring that up. I'm still scarred from 2024. I thought we were here to talk about 2025.
I need to get one
Uh,
more in. I need to get one more in, and then now it's gone. It's over.
uh,
Uh,
Luis,
No,
you're
excited to be here. Thank you for the invitation. Well, definitely it was we kind of choked there, but
yeah. Bad day
definitely
for us, great day for Andrew.
yeah.
new season, new beginnings, new expectations. So let's see what brings us this year.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, I was glad that it made the 6 hour trip worth it, because that would have been a really tough drive home. But like I said, it was. I think my favorite part about it was we got to Johnny and I got to meet up, and that was a highlight of the trip. So really, really happy that we got to do that, and hopefully we can make it happen again. I might take another trip down there. We'll see. But
Cool, man.
we could talk about the past game all the time, and I would if you'd like to. But I think people want to hear about 2025. But before we get to 2025, we have to talk about scarves. So I'm going to throw it to Luis first. You got a scarf for the week. What are you rocking?
Right here I have a Society 21 scarf. It's one of the first season ticket holders scarves that the Orlando City gave back in 2015. So
Nice.
OG scarf.
10 years now. 10
That's
years on it.
crazy. Isn't that crazy how fast time
That's a
flies?
10-year-old scarf you're
It's
holding there,
crazy, man.
Luis. Wow.
Gosh. Well, that
Uh,
is very, very nice. Johnny, I'll send it over to you. And I think I might just go with you because I think
yeah, I have the one that Andrew you brought me when you
I
came
did.
to you walked
Guys are
up
like
to me.
twins.
Yeah, you walked up to me at the tailgate of the game wearing this, and you gave it to me, and I was like, "Is he giving me something with Red Bulls?" Because it was red,
Yeah.
white, and blue, but it's actually an Orlando City red, white, and blue like USA themed kind of club and country scarf. So I absolutely love this. Yeah, I'm so annoyed that I didn't wear it when USA played here in Orlando recently. So I forgot about it, and I surely should have worn it because it would have been perfect for that night.
Well,
So that's my scarf.
I'm telling you, you would have thought by the reaction when I pulled out the scarf, he thought I was like trying to take his wallet or something. He was like, I can't take it," because he thought it was all Red Bull. I was like, "No, no, no! I swear, it's a good one." It was
I was
funny,
like, I
man.
can't touch red, white, and blue
Yeah,
today.
I
That's bad juju.
know. So what was funny is I had purchased this one for myself. It was on maybe on sale or clearance or whatever right before the holidays. As you guys know, I'm a scarf collector. I got my big wall usually behind me. I don't have it here. And to keep track, I've got my brother and I share a Google Doc that basically tracks all of our stuff. And I hadn't updated at the time, so I bought this. And then 2 days later, I go home for Christmas. He's like, "Merry Christmas," and I got the same one. So I'm like, I got to give this to somebody. I can't just hold on to it. And this is a perfect way to figure it out. So really happy we were able to do that, and hopefully there are a lot of good things coming up in 2025 because there's not a ton of change in Orlando, right? As expected, they move on from one star, they pick up another promising addition. Oscar Pareja remains in charge. The core of the group is still there, and that's kind of what you expect. You didn't expect a lot of movement there, except for Facundo Torres, of course. But last year was good to them, right? They didn't have a ton of trophies to show for it, but it wasn't a bad season. Finished in fourth in the East, 52 points. Out early in the Leagues Cup against Cruz Azul. Out early, a really tough draw against Tigres in the Champions Cup, and then making the conference finals appearance in the playoffs versus the greatest team in world football. Some may say, I don't know. But in 2025, they're going to look to improve on those results in Leagues Cup, and they're in the U.S. Open Cup as well. So, going to be really, really interesting to see how they handle that. What did you guys think of the 2024 season? How did you feel it went from a fan perspective?
Well, when it came to the 2024 season for a fan perspective, obviously, the first few weeks were rough. Obviously, I think the first part of the season, Orlando kind of threw it away, you know. And then, as I think there's only one team in the MLS that does it, Orlando decided to turn the tide and they started winning and going into winning streaks. And that took them into the Eastern Conference Finals, you know? And so for a fan, obviously, at least the way I perceive it is sometimes there's a lot of negativity, especially coming to the beginning of the season, you know, because they don't want to go back into the dark place, which makes a lot of sense. So whether all the fan is asking is just consistency, you know. So you start right and you continue the whole entire season, you know, which you know, and I think you and John know since soccer is pretty much almost impossible sometimes. You know, something's got to give at some point. There's going to be some bad games, going to be some really good games, you know. So, but overall, I think since Oscar took over the team, it's been positive for the franchise in general. I think it's been the best years Orlando has really competed against already well-established brands in the MLS, like the Red Bulls, like the LA teams, you know. So definitely a lot to work on, but you know that's how I take it. You know, a little slow in the beginning, but then it took up. John.
Yeah, I mean, I agree entirely. We ended up where we needed to end up, and we, quietly have been a top four Eastern team for like the last three seasons now. And
Yeah.
as much as everybody likes to kind of dismiss us and think of us as a smaller market or a club that maybe, can't go the whole way or whatever other people's opinion around the league might be, we have, a team that gets a lot out of not a lot of money. We spend wisely, we have a tight budget, and we've been able the last few years to be relevant. It's going to get harder and harder to do that, but I believe in the system that we built here and our plan, and we should again be a very competitive team in the East.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with everything you guys said there. And it's funny at the after the Champions Cup kicks off, there's always that one team that you're looking at, and it's like, this is going to be the team that slumps out after the Champions Cup, right? Like, team that was flying high last year, they come out of Champions Cup, they lose the first 5 games of the season, like, oh, this is just it was Austin in 22, it was or they might have been 23, but there's always one team that's like, oh, this was not the way that was supposed to go. And I remember telling Connor, I'm like, it's a race between Orlando and Philly of who's gonna crash out first, and obviously you guys turned it around, and I think that was really good. And I think it was Luis mentioned, or John, I think it might have been John, quietly a top four team. And that's the perfect description. Always quiet. Nobody picks Orlando to be a top four team, like like in their chest, unless they're supporters, of course. But even when I'm prepping this, I'm like, they can't do it again, can they? Like, it's just another year for them. Like, but they always find a way, and I think it's down to good coaching and great team chemistry. But you mentioned before that the budget's tight, right? You're not going to see Orlando pull like what DC's doing, signing 12 people in a window and doing it year after year after year. But who would you guys say is the best addition you've picked up so far?
Well, right now I think Orlando just signed this kid from Colombia, Nico Rodriguez. He's got a lot of upside. You know, definitely a kid that had really good numbers coming from a small team in the Colombian first tier. And right now the bus between Marco Pasalic, which is another signing that may pay some dividends down the road. Now, obviously, Orlando, as I'm sure a lot of the East knows already, they are the type of team that signs low budget, kind of like low, but with a high dividend, high, upside players. Uh, Same with when they brought Martin Ojeda, Ramiro Enrique, Ivan Angulo, Pedro Galese in the beginning. So it has paid tremendously for them. That's kind of the way Musi and Moreira kind of uh, play the chess game, when it comes to transfers. You don't see like Neymar's or like, Pax or things like that at the moment. Not to say the window's still up until April, so, here you go, NFL owners from the Vikings own the team, so they might give, right now they're working into getting a D-mid spot for Wilder because he got injured, and unfortunate, but I think the team is able to maintain somewhat of their core, but also they need some help in certain parts of now the attacking third, which is Faku's side. And
Mhm.
I think with Nico and Pasalic, I think that's going to kind of hopefully both of them have enough depth, not to totally replace Faku, obviously, but to definitely these are hopeful signings, that are
Yeah.
coming. I don't know what John feels about the signings lately. It's been kind of quiet too.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of trepidation amongst our fans who are concerned. Like, I think for sure the biggest addition, I'm sorry, best addition so far has got to be Nico Rodriguez because he's really been our only significant addition so far. But that doesn't mean we're done. I think sometimes it just takes, a little bit more time to get these things done. And for us, I expect in the next couple of weeks, like Luis says, Pasalic and potentially Atuesta would be great
Yeah.
additions for us. The club has stated that they really want to just have a reload year, not a full rebuild year.
Mhm.
And so I think that's really what it's difficult, obviously losing Faku and being able to do that, but they're going for like replacements, so that we can basically keep the same core of players, the same tactics, and run it back from what's been successful the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think you guys, the tough part about recording these as early as we do, because we're trying to get them out before the Champions Cup, or for you guys are just kind of the first team outside of the Champions Cup recordings that just kind of landed early. But if you're not making early moves, there's not a lot to talk about. So I know it may not count as a signing, but he's a re-signing. But I want to put respect on D3 legend Kyle Smith re-signing with the team yet again, because D3 respect. But no,
The
Nico
tax
Rodriguez.
man, the
Yeah.
accountant, Kyle Smith,
Yes,
legend of
sir.
Orlando
Yes,
City.
sir.
Yeah.
And it was funny because he actually went to school when I was in Lexington, Kentucky. He went to school at Transy, and I was like,
That's
oh,
awesome.
that's that like because I was like, oh, I know what that school is. I looked it up. I'm like, he's like a legend over there. I'm like, yes, sir, my guy.
We've
Um,
lost some small players around the squad as too. So it's been, like we lost Jack Lynn, we lost Mason Stajahar, we
mhm,
lost Heine to the expansion draft. So
yeah,
there's been some, definite movement around the lower end of the squad. So we are gonna need to replace some of that. So I'm hoping for at least what do you think, Luis? Like 3 or 4 more players to come in.
mhm.
We're hoping this window.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think obviously Nico Rodriguez at the moment being the only official signing is the one we have to pick here. But yeah, I think what's exciting is it's not you know, I think of it like when Red Bull used to be doing all of these transfer windows, and it was like maybe we've got a homegrown signing at the last day. Like we would just be silent but for Orlando, you've got the one in the door at the U22 signing, caliber, and you've got other people still in the rumor mill, which is exciting, right? That is
Yeah,
something you want to be looking at.
yeah, I mean, plus you had the depth from our academy as well. So a lot
Oh
of
yeah.
people are really not looking into that. You got, players like Sakata playing, kids that can definitely join and also have some minutes. You also have some players that may work in different parts of the field, like Ojeda could play the wing and could also play the 10.
Yeah.
Muriel can play the 9, could play the 10. So there's a lot of uh position kind of versatility. Yes, I understand that Orlando, and I totally agree with the fans that believe that there's going to be a time, probably soon enough, that the ownership is going to have to, hey, let's sign, like, let's invest $40 million in the team right now. You know what I mean? And let's do the Atlanta way. That they spend like $40 million on 4 players. Let's do that, right? And I'm sure we're gonna get that, but it's not really been like that for Orlando since they started. And I think Oscar's had success with workhorses and less than name recognizable players. And even Facu Torres, I could say, based on the minutes, even though he came with some buzz from South America, he was not a star. He was a promise, a prospect. Obviously now he's in Palmeiras and he's shining bright over there. But those kind of the type of signings I expect for Orlando City to make. So, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, yeah. Well, might transition there, but I don't think this is going to be a difficult question. But we've talked about players coming in. We should talk about players going out. Jack Lynn retiring at 23 is probably the biggest one you guys are worried about. I'm sure. I can't imagine any other name pops up there, but I'll
I
I'll send
told
it
you,
over to you
Heine
guys.
Gilking Bruceless, forever a lion. Got to be the big. Never played a game. Never played a game for
John
us.
John
That
already
that
bought
I
his
mean,
his
we
contract
laugh,
from
but it is
Etsy.
crazy. It's the
isn't
most
that
MLS
wild?
thing. Like, we signed him. It's like, yo, he's gonna be a prospect. He stole it away before we ever play him.
MLS gonna MLS, guys. MLS is gonna MLS. But share your thoughts on the biggest loss. Make it easy, I guess.
Yeah,
Go
we've
ahead,
talked
John.
about it. It's got to be Faku, of course. We've talked about it so much, but just to say on him, he was our leading goal scorer last few years. So there's a lot of goals there to fill in. Some of them were penalties for sure, but just that right-sided player, we have to have that as part of our team right now, and we're missing him. So of course, biggest loss is Facu Torres, but I'm excited by the idea of a Pasalic if that's the one we bring in, and if not, I think they're going to find the right guy to replace him.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to some of the people that have left the club, obviously Facu Torres obviously is the guy who takes away all the stats and the assists and the goals for sure. When it comes to Jack Lynn, I feel Jack Lynn, he just made a personal decision.
Yeah.
You know, uh,
That was like a shock, like moment for us, really. We really like Jacqueline as a backup option.
yeah, but I think he felt that maybe that just wasn't his call. Sometimes kids think because they're good in a sport, this is what they feel very passionate about, and maybe for him it was just like maybe like a job, you
Yeah.
know. And he maybe felt like, hey, I want to explore other opportunities, and it happens. Now who's behind those two players? Again, I feel like the Muriel, I think the transfer window would have looked a little different from for the Orlando perspective if Muriel would have now been in the team. You know what I mean? So I think we would have already targeted a nine. But good news is that Duncan's injury is going to push him into you know probably making it to the beginning of the season,
Good.
and it's not as bad as it is. And he's actually already did preseason with the whole group. And I believe that the club is betting on Duncan, to kind of take over too. They spent a lot of money on them. He was going to go to the whole saga he had with Blackburn and all that stuff. And, I feel like that's where it's going to go. But, I think those two are the biggest losses. I would say Felipe Martins too for John. Felipe Martins, right? Uh,
Andrew knows about the
Forever
loss
a
of Felipe
Lion.
Martins.
My boy.
No, but I mean, think about it. A lot of the players have stayed. If you think about the core, if you take away Facu, I mean, a lot of players, it's still the same team pretty much.
Yeah, yeah, it really is, and the I don't call myself a conspiracy theorist, but I always wonder like Jack Lynn being the number three guy before Muriel came in, with Duncan almost on the move. He was looking at being the number two guy, the first rotation guy in. Duncan's move falls through. Then you get Muriel in. Now he goes from almost being number two, fighting for a starting spot, down to number four, right? That's got to take a toll on him as well. So, I do hope he finds some happiness and finds a really nice path in life, because I too enjoyed watching him play when he came in. Um, but you're right, sometimes it just doesn't work out. Because I do think that, to make this a transition point, strangely enough, that I do think that he was one of my players to watch, breakout players, before we did these interviews. Like Connor and I just were doing it by ourselves. I do remember picking him as a guy like he could be the number two to step up and take a starting spot. But he won't be that guy this year. What sort of players should we be watching for then? As either players to watch who we know but should take a step up, or a breakout player that we may not have heard of yet.
So when it comes to Orlando City, I would say there's a kid that played MLS Next Pro, Alex Freeman. He's
Nice.
had a phenomenal preseason, and he killed it in the MLS Next Pro as well, with OCB. A kid with a lot of upside. He's fit. He's kind of like but he has a potential to be kind of like a Brandon By type of thing, type of
Mhm.
winger, type of left back or right back. A lot of potential, a lot of play generation, a finisher. So also Yutaro Sakata, that's another kid that came from FC Tokyo's academy in the J League. And Japanese players don't play when it comes to youth. So Colin Gusky, that's another player that OCB. So those are some of the young kids that are definitely going to make some moves. And obviously, when it comes to, I expect a better season from hopefully Brecalo, David Brecalo.
Mhm.
I expect a really good season from Dagger Dan. You know, and hopefully we see one of our wingers, either if it's Pasalic or even Nico Rodriguez, both of them having some buzz. And I want Angulo still with the same amount of minutes, still consistent, being that workhorse. And then up top, hopefully Duncan, man, this year, give me 15 goals, bro. 15 goals, Duncan. 15 goals, Duncan. You'll be the next nine of the men's national team. You can do it, man.
Ooh,
You can do it.
I got a buddy who says that's Pat Ogyman locked up, but y'all can fight that out. He's a big Charlotte guy.
Yeah,
Uh,
Aggie Man definitely is a
Yeah.
big good player too. Yeah,
I
he
think
can run though.
for me, I would go with I think Ramiro Enrique is the one to watch.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
Nice.
Ramiro Enrique is really like last year really settled into MLS, and it's just one of these players that has great movement in the box, and it's just very difficult to lock him down. And the way that we play, I think he's that kind of like he's like sometimes like a false nine, but he'll also go forward with the ball. Like he's very, fluid in the way that he attacks and he finds the spaces. He's quite like a poacher. He's clinical when he gets his opportunities. And he goes through these periods where he scores like every game for like 5 or 6 games. So I think with him starting out the season, the beginning of the year, if we start well, Ramiro Enrique could be the one. I also think Nicolas Rodriguez, honestly, I think even though we haven't seen him yet, just, I believe the kind of player he is, he's really a guy who likes to go 1v1 and someone that will take a player on. And I think in MLS that, especially for Orlando City, I know that that's something we haven't seen enough of, and that's something that I want to see more from our attackers. Like Facu, as good as he was, he never was a kind of like I'll really run at a guy and go past a guy kind of winger. He like Angulo can, or other players on our team. So I think Nicolas Rodriguez is a one to watch for me because I think he's going to be exciting in his play and the way that he attacks other players on the 1v1.
I like all of it.
But
I
also,
really
Alex Freeman is a great shout from Luis. I think he's going to have a breakout year.
nice. Well, that's gonna be one that we're gonna have to keep an eye on because that was not my choice. Um,
Who do you have, Andrew?
I went a little different because there was so little movement in the core of the team and players that the players that moved on were relatively replaced, and there weren't spaces in that team that were like, oh, it's going to have to be a kid to step up. I'm actually looking at Ivan Angulo, one of the better
yeah,
players in the game that I was at.
Yeah.
When we watched that game, I thought he was very, very good. But I also thought he benefited from having Facu Torres on the other side, where it was like, oh, it's Facu Torres, and then he had lots of space to work with. Without that player opposite of him, he's going to have to create a lot more of his own chances. He's going to have to do a little bit more of being the main guy instead of the support guy. So I really, really think that this could. I mean, it was best season in Orlando last year, no doubt about it. But he may need to find a way to tick it up another notch in 25.
Angulo is killer on the transition. Like he will
Yes.
murder you in the transition. And I think that's what we're kind of going for with these other wingers. I think a lot of the time, I don't know if Luis agrees, but for me, Faku would sometimes slow up that transition and would
Yeah.
kind of he just dwelled on the ball a little bit too long or didn't make that pass quick enough. And Angulo, when we flow through that left side and we hit you on the counter with Angulo and Enrique, it can be extremely dangerous because those guys like that fast-paced game in the transition. So I'm hoping that Nicolas Rodriguez and if it's whoever we bring in on that right side as a winger as well is going to be able to flow and be able to attack quickly in the counter.
Yeah, man. I'll tell you the player I was most worried about was not Facu Torres when we were in the
Yeah, the
semifinals.
speed
It
of
was Evan
Angulo
Angulo.
is
Oh,
outrageous. He's,
it-
he's
it-
he's one of the fastest players in the league, I believe.
fast, very good on the ball, dynamic, can finish a chance if you give him enough space to do it. Like I was like, you know what, Facu Torres is going to be fine. Like we'll handle him as best we can. And like I said, he actually had the best chance of the game, of course. But I was always worried that when the ball went out to the right, I was like, okay, we can handle this. When the ball went out to the left, I was like, everybody back, everybody go, 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 go. Do not let him go anywhere because he created so many problems, and I don't like that. So, it'll be interesting to see how he can pick up in 25 and what he looks like and how the play style is, and lots of questions there, right? But I want to know kind of what is your all's one big question that you've got coming in for 2025. What's still on the top of your head?
Well, definitely the demon situation. It's one that's lingering not only for me but for a lot of fans. Obviously, right now, Atuesta has been rumored to Orlando put on a $2 million offer for Atuesta to buy his rights from Palmeiras. They have a really good relationship, the club with Palmeiras. So because of Facu Torres and also Ivan Angulo, they actually poached from Palmeiras.
Hmm.
So they have a really good working relationship. So hopefully, if that becomes reality, Orlando has probably already fixed their double pivot problem. But at the moment, it's kind of like this, you know.
Hmm.
And also another thing I would say that it kind of worries me, and I think this is for everybody. I don't know if John feels the same way, but I just feel like it's hard to put a prediction for Orlando City because of always it's been fluctuations when it comes to performance. Like when we thought that Ojeda was on his way out and he wasn't being even used, all of a sudden, boom, he scores 6 goals, 7 goals a season, 8 goals a season. He's the top assist, player. When we think Muriel was coming to be that savior and $3 million Luis Muriel from Atalanta, boom, like horrible, right? And then we have Ramiro Enrique coming up, and we have some of the Cesar Araujo and so I feel like for Orlando it's a little different, when it comes to predictions and things like that. I do believe though that this season has to be Ojeda's season. I think he needs to be a top assist leader for sure. And again, I think in the attack, who's going to finish the play? Who's going to be the goal scorer for the team? That's a big kind of like inconclusive question because of Duncan's injury.
Sure.
I hope I put I'm gonna I'm gonna hopefully have the Dragon Ball so I can wish to the dragon, for Duncan to score more than 10 goals this season. I think if he scores that, then the attacking third portion is gonna be fine for Orlando City.
Hmm.
And typically Orlando defends pretty well. It's just that last season, again, it started a little slow, but in the end, Orlando knows how to defend pretty well. And they have defenders that have been in the team for a long time. So the most questions I have is in the attacking third and how they're going to produce those numbers that Facu just left. That to me is a huge one.
Yeah.
So hopefully we see a lot of the players step up this next season to kind of make the fans forget about Facu fast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
John.
I will. I'll tell you if you really don't like making predictions, you're gonna hate the next part of this
No,
episode.
no, no.
Yeah.
Um, For me, I think I agree with both of Louise's. I think, yeah, definitely what's happening with D mid, with Wilder gone, what's going on with the new attack without Faku. I think, like I said earlier, a big question is like, how do we look without Faku, like being such a central point of the attack? Now that Martino Ojeda is going to be the new, I think, like focus of our attack, what is that going to make us look like? Does that make us better or worse? And do the replacements coming in make us better or worse in the attack? But another big question that I have, and I think is one that I would hope to see, is that are we going to actually play more of our youth and more of our academy and more of these prospects like we talked about Alex Freeman, but we've got Thomas Williams, even the likes of like Tahiri Brown, Yutaro Shikata. We had a kid that was 16 playing against
Shaka
Atletico
Muhammad too.
Mineiro, a guy called called Caraballo from Venezuelan kids. So like we've got, I feel our academy is finally showing the dividends of being at that level where like your Phillies and the New Yorks and others that are
Columbus,
actually able
York.
to really produce talent that we feel ready to play at like 18, 19, 20 years old in the first team. And we saw a little bit of that against Atletico Mineiro in preseason. That excites me a lot, but it doesn't always end up like we get these guys actually minutes. Like Oscar Pereira, as much as we think of him as a guy who like ran the Dallas Academy and as a youth guy, we really don't see that much rotation from him. So my biggest one question is this the year? And they've been saying this, the club has been saying this,
Yeah,
but I
that's
don't
true.
know if they're telling the truth or not. Is this really the year that the youth gets their chance at Orlando City? And I hope it is because we've got some bright young talents.
I like it. I like it. Usually it's like, oh, like when are we signing our $50 million DP? It's like, nope, when are we playing the 18-year-old? Hook it right to my veins. Red.
That's just me though, man. I'm a youth. Like Luis will tell you, I'm like, no more old men. Stop signing 30-year-old guys. Play the 18-year-olds.
No,
That's me.
people online, they ripped me a new one, dude, because I said, if you take Rui Diaz, bro, he's free for cheap. Don't tell me any team in the MLS is gonna say, "Oh, no Rui Diaz for me." Of course, man, he's gonna go to Houston, bro. If the Red Bulls, if he offers himself for 1.5 million, the Rebels are gonna say no to Rui Diaz. Of course,
Yeah.
come on,
The,
man.
the,
You know
the,
what I mean? Like,
this is the first year we've ever signed anybody over 30 in like half a decade, and we signed three of them, and we gave one of them a DP contract, and he hasn't scored 10 goals in his entire career. That's for a whole
yeah.
nother deep
So,
dive. But I don't think we touch Rui Diaz, but that's a different story. But I would agree with you that there are teams that he fits in. A lot of teams that he fits in. I
yeah,
don't
no,
know I don't know if Orlando would be one of them personally, but
right, right. I agree with you on that, but I'm just saying in the level of like when the youth is not going to work. Let's say the youth doesn't work for Orlando. They're like, the first few games, Oscar puts some of the kids, right? And right now everybody's like, oh yeah, Thomas Thomas Williams, great guy, man, But all of a sudden, let's say he has a couple of bad games. The people are gonna say, oh, you see, we're throwing the kid. The
yeah,
kid's not ready. What are we doing? We didn't sign this player. Is he? So they're just gonna look for something to say. And same if we would have signed, let's say, I don't know, Ariel Collin from retirement for crying out loud. We would have signed him back again, for $5 and a club sandwich. They wouldn't be like, oh, he's too old, man. See, this is what we get. We're signing all these old players, and then the youth is not having any minutes. So there's no winning with Orlando City. Literally.
I,
They're gonna just complain for no reason.
There's
yeah,
literally no winning for
that
apart from
that
the U.S. Open Cup.
So, but I
uh
do agree with John that we need to see the youth like this season. They need to have, you know, f- the League's Cup. Who cares about that thing? You just put the kids to play the League's Cup. You know what I mean? The beginning of the League's Cup, beginning of the US Open, just put the kids to play, man. I mean, we need to see them. We need to see our investment there for Orlando City B.
you
Otherwise, it's just all smoke.
yeah, you may get that in Open Cup. I think they'll probably stick it in Leagues Cup and put their best out there. But you may see it in open comp. Whether that's the right idea
Yeah,
or not, that's
yeah. No,
a
no,
whole
I agree.
nother
I agree with you.
episode.
I agree with you. Yep, yep.
But I'll say my one question, very simple, because there's not, we've talked about it already, but it was very simply, what does the attack look like without Facundo Torres, right? And stuff that we've hit on basically this whole episode. So I won't hash too much into it, but what I will do is I'll move on to the big one, right? We've talked all about these players and movements and all this stuff. What does it do for Orlando City in 2025? Where are they going to finish?
If you ask me, I feel we're gonna be a top five team in the MLS.
Ooh, the whole league. Okay. Like it.
Well, in the East at least.
Okay, in the East. Okay.
I'm gonna fix it in the East.
Gotcha.
Top five team in the East, and the worst scenario will be not going to playoffs, which I truly doubt that's going to happen. You know, I don't think there's a league in the world that has kept 80% of their 90% of their core team and not, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And last season, it looked for a lot of fans, it looked like the Lions weren't going to make the playoffs, and then they went to the conference finals. So the percentage of turning the tides around and Oscar figuring out what's going on, it's a higher chance of success in this recent seasons. So that tells me that I aspire at least uh with Facu leaving for at least to them to still be a top five team in the East.
I'll tell you, it very well may be the new meta, as the kids say, where you need to just barely scrape into the playoffs, and then boom, you're running all the way off to the Red Bull, Orlando, Atlanta, just barely sneak in, or people. Everybody thought they were down and out with, like, you know 5 games into the season, like, oh, they're done, the season's over, and boom, look at how far they all go, and look at the teams that they beat. That may be the new strategy, guys.
Yeah, Columbus, I think, won the MLS Cup, and they went to the playoffs at seventh. That's one season.
Yeah, and Seattle did the same. Seattle
Yeah,
Seattle snuck in after they signed Ladero. So,
yeah.
Johnny, what do you got, man? Where are we going here?
Um, I mean, the East is,
It's tough.
it's a bloodbath, right?
Yes,
Like,
it is.
of course, like I said before, there's lots of positives about us, but also we're not out there spending 32 million or whatever it is on guys. So you got to consider the Atlantas, the Charlottes, the Inters, the all of that. I think the Southeast is kind of just where it's at, in my opinion. I think, Red Bulls are going to be good again for sure. But I look at the Southeastern teams and I think those are the ones that are strong, and we've got to maintain, our position. I think top fourth is going to be really hard. I would go for fifth, I think is about right for us. I think in a good season, fifth is what I would like, or fourth would be amazing. I would love that, but I think it's very
Right.
difficult for us to do, even more difficult than the last few years. And then I think, yeah, like Luis says, worst case scenario, we're still making the playoffs. I don't see us not making the playoffs. I think we're much better than some of the lower end teams in the East. As much as, New England can make all the moves they want, you got to put it all together, right? We are, more of a proven entity in that case than a lot of these other teams, like your Torontos and your Phillies and these other clubs that are trying to claw all the way back into making sense again. We hopefully should just kind of roll it out with some switched out pieces, and if everything goes well, then we'll end up fourth or fifth, and everything goes badly, well, I think we'll still end up eighth or ninth. I would love to see some consistency though for us. Like
Yeah, I agree.
it's pretty rough, honestly, and we lose a lot of home games, and that sucks. And I would take second in the Supporter Shield. Like winning the East, I would take winning the East over a lot of things for me, because I would love to have that period of dominancy. MLS Cup, I think, is sort of where it's at for this team right now, because we seem to have that ability to peak late in the year. So I think we could do well in MLS Cup again, but I would like to see a little bit more consistency across the season, because it's been rough with these bad periods.
Yeah, the up and down is the worst part of it, right? If you could just sit in and this is what we're gonna be, That's all you can ask for, right? I'm right with you guys. Like I think it's a good team. It's still a good team. The core's there. They haven't really, lost anybody outside of Facundo Torres and a couple of injuries, it sounds like, but I do feel like they're going to take a step back from this big run that they went on. I've got them in, we do ranges, so I've got them between like 4 and 7. I don't think they're a play-in team. Like I think they're going to be better than the 8-9 play-in game. Like those teams sneak in last minute because MLS lets too many teams in the playoffs, right? Like they shouldn't be there, but they're there. Orlando does not feel like a team that should not be in playoffs with the group that they've got, unless things take a terrible, terrible turn, right? Like, but I don't think that they're going to be fighting with Miami. I don't think they'll be fighting with Crew, even without Cucho. I don't think they're fighting with Crew. And there are a couple other teams that I'm like, I think that one through three is probably locked up, by somebody. So I don't know if Orlando sneaks in there, but I do think that they'll finish like 4-7. So
Cincy as well. Can't
yeah,
forget
that's the one I
Cincy.
was thinking of.
They're
Yeah.
big up there too. It's just you list those clubs, Andrew, and it's like you've got 5 or 6 on your hand
Mhm.
before, right? And I
Yeah.
hope we're in that 5 or 6 that other teams are mentioning, but I don't think we always are. I whereas like you said, your Atlantas, your Inter Miamis are definitely going to
Atlanta, the
be
other one too. Yeah,
they're
they're
definitely
going to
going to
be
be in that top
huge.
5 or 6 teams in the East right now. So
Yeah.
it's a bloodbath, but we say that every year and we end up fourth. So
Yeah. Well,
let's see.
I'm gonna let Connor know you said that because that's his favorite
We
phrase.
said it last year. We
He
said it the
loves
year
calling the East a
before.
bloodbath.
Every
So
year it's a bloodbath, you
yeah,
know?
I'm gonna have to send him that clip. But guys, thanks so much for hopping on. I really, really enjoyed this, and I appreciate you guys. You guys are some of the best. So I'm really glad we're able to make this work again. I want to give you a minute to tell everybody where to find you and share all your links and all that fun stuff.
Well, I appreciate you, Andrew. Everybody that was watching, also make sure you subscribe. You listen to the pod. We are available on all social media as Loud and Proud Orlando. Also on X as uh, LPO underscore podcast. On Instagram, LPO underscore podcast. You can find us also on Blue Sky as Loud and Proud Orlando. Just check us out and support here the pod. And again, I wanted to thank you for your support. If you looking for my own social media on X, I'm at Pineda underscore ORL.
Yeah, check us out if you're interested in Orlando. We also cover Orlando Pride, so we do everything on NWSL and the women's side. They had a bit of hell of a season last year. They won a double, so we had a lot of fun covering them as well. So you can find me on X as John Rollins, OCSC as well. All my tweets and thoughts are usually there. So thank you to Andrew. It's great to catch up with you, buddy.
Yeah, always, always. Guys, go over, send them some love. Their live streams are tons of fun. They get so many viewers and so many people in there that it's literally it's like you're all just sitting there chatting with each other. It's tons of fun. Definitely get in there, go give them a follow. If you're new here, this is your first time seeing us. I say we as if Connor is here, but my buddy and I, Connor, we do this 2 times a week. It is usually MLS news reactions and some MLS history stuff, going back in time and reliving some things that some of the newer fans might not know about. So give us a follow. We're YouTube, we're TikTok, we're X and Blue Sky, and we're Instagram. So anywhere you want. Oh, and we're Goals TV now. That's right. We just got on Goals TV. So head on over there and give us a follow too. So guys, thank you so much again for being here. And everybody who's listening, thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. See ya.